Welcome back to Around the Kitchen Table. My name's Rochelle. I'm a certified herbalist and the owner and founder of Happy Herbs. Today I'm with Rachel. She is a wife, a mother of 5 boys. Yep, 5 boys, a nurse, and an entrepreneur. And today we're going to be talking about navigating parenthood. Now, Rachel has a really amazing Instagram, and she really, I feel like the voice of your Instagram really is about navigating motherhood, parenthood in general. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. It's, it was birthed out of just my own frustration with everyday things, like just how to get my kids to stop bickering and how to survive and, maintain my composure and speak life into my kids without just always losing it. Like it just out of the reality of my everyday walk.
Yeah.
I felt like my friends were struggling. I was struggling. And once I found things that worked and solutions, I wanted to share it with more people.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And I really wanted to get her on here because if you guys don't already follow her, I will link her Instagram in the bio. She gives such great wisdom, honestly, pure wisdom. It's something we need in this day and age. And Rachel and I actually met through a Bible study, totally random. And it was the Jen Wilkin Bible study that you guys did. If you guys need a good Bible study, honestly, the Jen Wilkin Bible studies are amazing. They are so in depth. Honestly, I don't think I've ever done a group Bible study that I enjoyed.
Was it the Genesis one you were at?
No, it was the Exodus.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah,
I did do Genesis on my own, and then I did John with Mitchell, but the Exodus one, so far that's been my favorite, and I want to do more. So you guys, if you need a good Bible study, the Jen Wilkin study, highly recommend it.
Yeah.
So anyways, we're going to jump right in. So I'm just going to ask Rachel some questions, and we're just going to go through, and she's just going to give us some good advice and wisdom because, I have 2 kids and she has 5 boys. Okay. 5 boys. I have one boy who has so much energy. I don't know how you do it. It's kudos to you. God knows what you can handle and what you need, and you're a warrior. So I wanted to talk about why children are a blessing and the lie the world tells us. Because I feel like we live in a generation where it's all about ourselves, and people don't really want to have children as much anymore. And if they do, they maybe, want to do it later, or they just want one. And it seems like there's this doomsday around it. Oh my gosh, it's, I would rather travel. I'd rather save my money. I would, rather save my sanity. And there's just such a negative picture painted around that. But, I think you and I both know children are a blessing. They're a blessing from the Lord. And I can honestly say when entering into my marriage, me and my husband, we didn't want kids. And I'm so thankful that God changed my heart in that area, because now that I'm a mother, I'm this is honestly the most fulfilling, most amazing thing I've ever experienced. I think children are amazing. And, so yeah, what do you have to say in regards to, being children are a blessing and the lie the world tells us?
Yeah. Full disclosure, I can't answer that question without it having, a biblical backing, because that's who I am. I think that, first of all, we weren't made to live for ourselves.
Yeah.
Because if we lived for ourselves and we really followed down that path of, I don't want a child because it's going to hinder my ability to further myself. If everybody did that, we would cease to exist, right? So we were made to reproduce. We were made to be in community and to encourage each other. We were made to build people up, right?
Absolutely.
And that's what motherhood is.
Yeah.
There is a lot of self-denial that comes with having children. And self-denial I've discovered firsthand, and this is biblical, but I when I read it in the Bible, I didn't necessarily apply it to myself or understand it until I was a mother. But self-denial is one of the best things for us, right? And we intuitively know that. You meet a mom or you meet anybody who has this spoiled child. If you have anybody you meet that's spoiled, there's a distaste. We all have this distaste. Inside of us, we're that person's so spoiled, because we're not meant to have everything. We're meant to have to appreciate, or we're meant to, it's better for our quality of life to appreciate things, right?
Yeah.
So when we have children, we have to say no to a lot of the things that we want, which makes us really appreciate the things that we have.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
So
good.
it's a blessing for us personally, but alongside that blessing, until you have children of your own, you don't really appreciate what it means to raise somebody and to see them become something and to see the parts of you inside of them that you worked so hard to produce. Like,
right.
We're like God says that we're to bear fruit, right?
Yeah.
And that means that as we're connected to him, like passively through us, we experience more patience and we experience more kindness and goodness. And, you know, when you can then see that reflected in your relationship with your child, you know, if you're really working to produce this human that loves others and who is kind, and you see them just not intuitively, it's never intuitive to share, but when you see them practice sharing when they're 4 years old at the park and you're not the one saying, make sure you share, you just feel this sense of like, wow, like my life is for something. Yeah. My life is about something greater than just that trip or this career. Yes. My life is helping this world continue.
There's purpose
to grow, you know? And so you have the blessing of like learning how to appreciate the things in your life because you can't have everything anymore. Yeah. And then you have the blessing of seeing this person become someone, and the blessing of the reflection of who you are in that person, because there's been times like, I mean, I am not a perfect mother by any means.
Yeah, no one is.
And I've heard that tone that I'm not so proud of in my child. Like,
oh, yes.
That tone that that I don't want anyone to hear. Yeah. And then I hear them screaming it at someone at the park because, you know, I've had my moment of weakness. To see that in them, although like I don't enjoy that, it's a blessing to know that I need to fix that. Right? Right? There's so many ways
they really are a mirror. They really are a mirror. You really, that's like the one thing I would say going into motherhood. I did not know how many flaws I had, how many triggers I had until having a child. And you're like, oh my gosh, I have so much work to do. But as you saying, you know, the fruits, I always see family and raising children. It really is like a garden, you know, like if you don't take care of your garden, you're going to get weeds. You're going to, you know, things aren't going to work out. You're not going to get the fruit from it. But when you're out there and you're taking care of your garden and you're pulling the weeds and you're watering it and you're giving it the sunshine, all those things you need, like when harvest season comes, like you're going to get those fruits, right? Yeah. Okay. I love that. So I wanted to talk about how can you prepare for motherhood? Now, this is a crazy question because I personally don't think, I don't think you can prepare for motherhood. I don't think there's anything out there that can prepare you for motherhood, but I wanted to see kind of what your stance was on this, because I know before having children, people would tell you things, you know, like, oh, it's this and it's that, and give you advice. But until you actually enter into it, you are like, oh my gosh, no one could have prepared me for this.
Yeah. Looking back, like there's all kinds of different people. You meet those women who have dreamed of being a mother all their life, right? They have all the books, they've done all the research, and they're preparing actively to be a mother. You have the other people who didn't plan on having a child and then they get pregnant and now they're having to like just grapple with this change in direction they weren't experiencing. You know, children come under all kinds of different circumstances. I would say after having 5 kids, if I were to look back and I could talk to myself and just say like, listen, Rachel, this is what you need to prepare for. I would say to prepare for having more grace within my relationship with my spouse. Because everything will come. Like you'll learn how to bath the baby. You'll learn how to do the late nights. You'll learn it all. There's so much resource. There's so many resources. There's so many people willing to help you. Everybody wants to tell you how to do it. I mean, as long as you're willing to just have patience and just take everything and thank you. Right. Take what you need. I used to like butt heads with, you know, certain people in my life who were telling me how to parent, but now I think I should have just, you know,
you live and you learn. Yeah.
But what I wasn't prepared for was how rough it was going to be on my marriage, because we were just used, like my husband was used to having all me and I was used to sleeping all night. And, you know, all of a sudden it's like he gets home from a long day at work. I have this baby I'm trying to throw on him so I can go have a shower. He's like, why are you throwing a baby on me? I just got home from work. And like, we didn't have, nobody had taught us what to expect when we brought that new person in. So I think that if I were to say, how do you prepare for motherhood? I'd say like really be prepared for your relationships in your support system. Like maybe some people don't have a partner when they're having a baby, whatever. Maybe it's their parents helping them, but just be prepared for your relationships and your support system to be disrupted.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. And being prepared for that. I mean, how do we prepare for that? Like mentorship, you can read all the books, but sometimes it's nice to have the people closest in your life, or even a counselor or a therapist, and talking through those things before you enter that season to help you prepare and have those tools ready for when that does come. Because that can take a lot of people for surprise, because you see the movies and you're just like, baby, and you just think of all the dopamine highs and just
this honeymoon, and you're like walking around like a zombie. You look like crap.
Oh my god,
you smell like crap.
You like literally never wear a shirt for like the first month. You're just like, oh my gosh, breastfeeding and it's
glorious.
You're sweating buckets. I think that's the one thing that no one prepared before was the sweating. I don't know if that happened to you, but after both children, it's like the first like month or two, like profusely sweating, like waking up just drenched. I'm like, what is this? Like,
I think it's weird because I've had 5 kids, and my hormones have responded differently for different kids.
Yeah.
So I only had 2 kids where I had some sweating.
Okay. It's detoxing ultimately.
I had I couldn't even wear a deodorant that worked properly.
Yeah.
Because it was
you stink.
Yeah.
You stink.
And then 2-3 other of my children, I didn't have any issue with sweating. So it's very interesting.
Was it the first 2 that you were like that, and then it went into that?
I think it was my second and my 4th child. Oh. Because I don't remember it with the last one. I don't remember it with the first one. I don't know. The middle child.
It's definitely hormonal. Like your body has to express all of the, excess hormones that it's had that entire time. And then so you go into detox mode. It's totally normal. It's even like when babies are born, they get all the acne. Yeah. Like, it's hormonal too. But no one prepared me for that one. So,
Yeah.
Okay. So this is really important. Why it's important to express gratitude daily, and why the opposite of that is dangerous.
Mm-hmm. There's I had an experience. I don't, again, like you have to experience things to really realize them, but I struggle with anxiety. So it's been under control for quite a while now, just through prayer and spending time with God and vitamin D. I really think it's vitamin D.
Yeah, that too
helps a lot. But there's one Bible verse that I've read over and over again, and help me remember, but it's don't worry about anything, but in everything with prayer and prayer and thanksgiving, present your requests to God. Yeah. So I've always heard that as just pray about everything. Yeah. So this one time I was having such bad anxiety for so long. This was maybe a summer or 2 summers ago, and I felt it in my chest, like it was really
tightening. Yeah, like panic attack.
Yeah, all the time, waking up like that. So it was hard because I couldn't pinpoint what I was necessarily anxious about. Like I tried to uncover it. I tried to do like journaling and talk to people, but there was nothing that I was anxious about that I could understand. So that verse, I just felt really led to it one day, and I was reading it, and suddenly the Thanksgiving part stood out to me. Yeah. It was like I'd never even recognized it there. It was like pray about everything, but it's like with prayer and Thanksgiving. Yeah. And so I decided to really like take that seriously, and I just like radically practiced Thanksgiving in my life for like, I'd say like a 48-hour period of just like everything. Yeah. Like I was really in a bad place with my anxiety. I could cope, I could parent, I could do everything, but I was uncomfortable all the time. And so I was like, if I was carrying my diaper bag and I could feel the weight of the diaper bag on my shoulder as I'm walking during this period of radical Thanksgiving, I was just like, thank you, God, that I have a working shoulder. Yes. Thank you, God, that I can afford a diaper bag. Thank you, God, that, I have children to have diapers.
It's like turning your obsessive thinking towards God instead of like the negative thing. Yeah.
Waking up in the middle of the night. Thank you for this exact pillow, that I can be comfortable on it right now. Thank you that I can afford to have blankets. Thank you, God, that I have, food in my fridge. Thank you for any and everything I looked at. Like if I were here right now, I'd be in this environment. I'd be like, thank you that I have access to a clean drinking water. Thank you that I have the freedom to speak. Thank you that we have these resources we can talk into. Just, I really practiced that. And it was like God really just, I don't think that this would happen for everybody that does it, because I think it was, he was really trying to show me something in that. But my anxiety and my panic attacks, I was having heart palpitations at the time and my eye was twitching. So like I had this eye twitch for so long, and that happens when I'm really, really stressed. And it went away.
It's amazing.
For the first time in like weeks after I'd been practicing this radical Thanksgiving. My chest was like alleviated from that tension. I felt like I was just at a lot more peace. And I think that God gave me that experience just to show me, like, Rachel, you really need to, like, I don't give you Thanksgiving just so that I get all this praise. Like, I'm not sitting up here as this mighty God that's like, yeah, thank me for everything all the time just because I want it. Thanksgiving is for you. Yeah. It is an antidote to anxiety. It is something that helps you. Like, it's not just for me. I mean, it is, I do believe God deserves all the glory. Yeah. But it's for us too. Yeah. Like, the gratitude and being grateful for what we have rather than always wanting gives us so much peace and perspective. And yeah, like, imagine living in this state of want all the time. And
absolutely. I can really relate to that, because I also suffered with anxiety in my early 20s and had panic attacks all the time, like just out of nowhere. And that was one of the things that helped me heal too, was literally like changing my thought process. And every single time I would get into that mode, it was like thanksgiving to God, focusing on God and replacing that with God. And then eventually your thought life becomes your prayer life. Like everything I'm thinking about, it's like, I give it to him. You know, all of a sudden I start having a thought. I'm like, oh, Lord. But then now it's like, you know, I'll be at the mall. Oh, look at this. Oh, Lord, should I get that? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
you're in this constant conversation with God.
You know, and it really did, from doing that, it changed my thought life to a constant prayer life. And it's been life-changing, and it's brought me closer to God, and it has been healing. So I can definitely relate to that. But even on the, you know, the bitterness aspect and just talking about that, it's like, imagine you're married, and as you are, but imagine your husband is always thinking about all the negative things in your marriage. And then you're always thinking about all the positive things in your marriage. Like, you are going to fall apart. You know what I mean? It's like, you're like, okay, yeah, these minuscule things, we can work on it. But I'm just thinking about, okay, my husband's so great, you know, this and that. Like, I have this, like, we're as a family, we have a home, we have food on the table, we have these beautiful children. And then, you know, what if he's thinking like the opposite of that? Like, you know, we need more money, we need more this, we don't have enough. It's like, that will destroy you, because it just opens the door to bitterness and resentment. And once you open that door, it's disastrous. Like, it will tear apart your life. It will tear apart your relationships, and it will really bring you to rock bottom. And so it's so important for us to, have that gratitude every single day, even if it's like at the end of the day, like, you know, if you're putting your child to bed, and whether you're, you know, a Christian or a non-Christian, whether you want to pray with your child and be like, Lord, we're thankful for this. Ask your child, what are you thankful for? Right. And if you're not a Christian, just say what you're thankful for. Right. Because it really is healing, and it really is helpful.
Yeah. And I do think, like, from a Christian perspective, that is the main place right now that, you know, the enemy wants to get a foothold in our hearts as mothers, right? Is to have that resentment towards our children and towards our husbands, because that's where he can gain power and tear that family apart. Yeah. Is that when I'm walking around with a laundry basket and I'm just starting to be bitter and think like, why aren't you helping? And why do I always have to do this? Like, you know, that's where the enemy wants my heart.
Yeah. Because when it starts in the mind, it goes to the heart.
Yes.
Right.
And I had this like transformational experience for myself, is that like, I think that anybody who's ever prayed has had this sort of like, you know, toddler relationship with God where they're just, I want, right? Right. Like, God, please help me with this. So I had that sort of, I have had that in the middle of the night when my children are getting up. I'm sort of like, I want my sleep. And then, you know, when I'm nursing, I'm, you know, you're prepared for it. But, you know, kids go through regressions, and maybe you've been sleeping better for a little while, and then all of a sudden they're in this sleep regression. And I'm just like praying, like I have 5 kids. I've gone through this so many times. And with my 4th kid, it's just like these middle of the night prayers, like, God, you could put the kid back to bed. Like, you could make him sleep. Why aren't you? Do you even love me? Like, where are you? I just feel like in the moment, I feel justified in that prayer. Mm-hmm. But when I look at it, I'm this toddler who's not getting her way. It's like, God made me a mother, and this is part of my role. Exactly. Is that, like, I was made to have this. So I remember, like, child after child after child having this middle of the night ongoing conversation with God, like, stubborn, like, stuck up, like, I need to sleep now, God. You know I need to sleep. Like, can you get this kid to bed? And then one night, he was crying, my 4th son, and I was just lying there. I was so, he'd been up every hour. I had pulled a mattress onto the floor in his room, and I was just like laying there listening to his cry, bitter and angry at God, of course. And then this change happened in my heart, and praise the Lord because he did it. And it was, instead of, God, why aren't you putting me to bed? It was, God, thank you for his little voice crying. Right. Thank you that I can experience these moments where I am here for him. Yeah. Thank you that I can be awake and well to care for my baby. Right. Thank you that you have, like, given me these children to, respond to, and, and that gratitude, it changed everything. Right. It changed my, it continued to refine me as a mom. And rather than waking up grumpy, like, how are you? And then my husband always goes, oh, rough night. And it's like, yeah, rough night. Like, as if it's his fault. Like, right. Yeah. Instead it was just like, yeah, I was up with, Josh and it makes you think. I find motherhood really makes you see your relationship with Christ differently too. Cause it's like, when we first have a relationship with God, it's like, we are that toddler, as you're saying, we are like, God, we want this. God, we want that, mm-hmm. Help me this, help me that. And as you mature, you ask for less, and well, sometimes some people don't, but you ask for less, and you have to wait longer too. Mm-hmm. I find that's one thing that I realize. It's like when you're a baby Christian and you find God, it's like, you know what? He does kind of answer you really quickly. I found with my experience, mm-hmm. It's like he answers you quickly. He's there for you. Thank her, Lord. Yep. Oh, give me a second. Okay. Honey, it's okay. I'll cut that out. What's wrong? Oh, for those of you who are listening through audio only, my son had just woken up and wanted his mommy. I think it's such a God thing. You should just leave it in there. All right. I probably will. Okay. As I was saying, when you're a baby Christian, God answers you so quickly, and it's like, because you are that baby. And then as you get older, it's like, he might not answer you as quickly because he's teaching you something in those seasons, right? And mm-hmm. he's growing you, and you're learning. And so it just makes me think of that. But anyways, it's very much like how we respond to our kids when they're a baby. We respond right away. As they get older, I might say, like, I'll be right there. Exactly. And then as they're adults, it's like, oh, okay, next week we'll work on that. And, exactly. there's this expectation that God brings us to this place where he wants to see how we're going to sort things out and how we're going to respond to things. Because I think that's part of, he's a parent. Yeah, he is a parent. Absolutely. Yeah. He is our parent. I love that. Okay. So I wanted to talk about what are triggers and what can we do when they arise. Well, I think most of us know what triggers are. Triggers are usually like negative reactions to something that is usually unhealed within ourselves. And like I said, when you have children, a lot of the times you have triggers that you don't even know that you had. At least I found that for myself. Like, I didn't think I had very many triggers. And then I had a child and I was like, oh my gosh, like I need to heal here. I need to heal there. I need to heal everywhere, So what would be your opinion on just like how to heal from that, how to deal with that, how to get that patience, how to deal with those triggers? Yeah, I mean, the healing part of it, I'm still figuring out. But the response part of it, three different things that helped me. Okay. For me, having 5 boys, like they're very busy and they bicker. Mm-hmm. Like everybody's children are just born very entitled. Like,
Yep.
and it's always like, someone did this to me. I've been wronged. I find that when I'm this constant mediator and I'm always being pulled away from what I'm doing, maybe I'm making dinner, maybe I'm preparing something for their school, and now, you know, I'm on track. I'm trying to carry out a process, and I'm constantly being pulled away from what I'm doing, and I find this tension builds up, right?
Right.
To the point where, like, I might want to snap. Like, that's enough. Like, okay, I need to finish this. Like, give me some space. Work it out yourself, right? So there's this, I find that every single time that my children come to me, if I'm not dealing with them with the Lord, then I am way more vulnerable to falling short as a mother. So true. So when they come, every single time, so it's like, you know, 2 of them come in the room and they have this complaint against each other, and now they're pulling me into this mediation role, right? I wasn't there. I didn't see. Yeah. And so I get stressed out that I'm gonna now, like, you know, misjudge. So I just ask God. I just say, I wasn't there, God. Like, what did you see? Like, I need help and I need wisdom.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I honestly find that I have so much more peace when I'm dealing with them, when I'm involving and praying before something happens.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I do, is I pray. The second thing I actively try to do is distance myself from distractions that feed my flesh. So if, you know, when I'm like engaging with my children, if I am also trying to engage with my phone.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
I find that, like, now I have a little bit of an attitude towards my kids if they're interrupting whatever it is I'm doing on my phone. And so I still do. I mean, I have so much to do on my phone as a mom. Like, I'm doing our scheduling on there. I'm responding to school emails. I'm planning play dates for them. Like, there is a part of me that has to use my phone, and I can't just save it all till nighttime when they're in bed, because I'm exhausted and I need to go to bed. So they have to understand that there are some things that I have to use my phone for, but I can't fall off of, you know, that track and start, you know, doing my own thing on there, whether it's scrolling or whatever. Because if they're around, they need to be my priority, and I have to have that mindset. Yeah. Right. So praying, just recognizing boundaries with things that might cause me that tension. Yeah. And then also just trying to focus on, and reflect on, the fact that they are very young. Yeah. Like, and remind myself to be gracious in, if I'm wanting to respond in a certain way, like, you know, maybe I've said no to the treats. Like, it's like, no, you've had enough sugar for today, but they keep asking. Maybe that's causing me a lot of stress, but I have to, like, say, he's 6 years old. Okay. His brain's not done growing, Rachel. Like, you have to have patience and grace with him. Yeah. Right. So those are some of the things that I find, if I am actively practicing them, they help tremendously. Yeah. But, you know, we all go in seasons with how diligent we are in our ability to use these skills.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. I find that if I'm, on my phone or doing something, you can definitely get a little bit more triggered. I feel like those are more of like the little triggers throughout the day, or like they're being extra loud. You're trying to do something, you're overstimulated, you get triggered, right? And it's like, how do you find that, how do you recharge, right? And I agree, like through prayer, sometimes I'll even put on worship music in the background, and I find it really calms the kids down. Sometimes we'll pray together. Sometimes, you know, I'm going to my husband. I'm like, hey, I need 10. If he's home, you know, I need 10. I'm going to go downstairs. I'm going to hide, and I'll be right back. But sometimes you don't always get that. And then there are those big triggers too, where people need inner healing, right? You might want to go see a therapist and get some help and figure out where those triggers are coming from, so that you can heal and uproot whatever that is. And so, it really depends on, you know, the scale of intensity of that trigger.
For sure.
Okay. So admitting when we are wrong to our children, I feel like this is huge. I saw you talking about this specifically on your Instagram, and I had to add it in here because, I know for myself, that's really big. I feel like, I don't know about you, but I came from, you know, an adult generation prior where you didn't really see that. You didn't really see adults apologizing to children. It was kind of like, well, you just get over it and move on. Well, I am seeing that I'm seeing like parents apologize more to their children now in this generation. I find I do it very often because I don't want my child to think that, you know, I'm just like this perfect human who can get away with everything. Like I'm human too. I make mistakes and that's okay. But what's your take on that?
Yeah, no, I think it's vital actually because especially when I'm trying to raise kids to have authentic faith. Like
Yes.
kids can see our mistakes.
Yep.
They know where we're falling short.
Yep.
You know, growing up, I know when my mom was in the wrong. I couldn't say that to her.
Yeah.
But I'd know. And I think that if a parent is not willing to address that and to, you know, to reveal that they also know that they've been wrong, that resentment and that mistrust grows in the relationship. So a child is not going to trust me if I'm always acting like I'm right and I'm not, or if I'm saying I'm right, but I'm not acting like it, right? That trust factor. So if I am going around making mistakes with my children, which I do regularly, like, you know, whether it's losing my temper or maybe I had promised that we would do something and we ran out of time and we didn't. I like to address that. Like instead of saying like, you know what, it's just not going to work out today, you know, and not, pardon me, and not addressing that. You know, I'd rather come to my kids and say, like, I made a mistake when I planned today. Like, I didn't foresee this happening. I hope you can forgive me. My intention wasn't for you to miss out on this opportunity. I'd like to make it up to you. Yeah. You know, and when especially when I if I've done something, you know, whether my two older boys, they know better, but they still fight. They bicker and they fight, and they're getting old enough to know. They're, you know, 10 and 12. They can sort through things. And so I find that, especially with my oldest, he's a little fiery and I'm fiery. And so now that he's coming into his, you know, preteen years, he's pushing back with a lot of attitude, which just triggers my attitude. Yeah. And there's a part of me that feels justified. Like, you're giving me attitude, I'll give it right back. Yeah. Right? Yeah. But I'm the mom. I know better. Yeah. He's still learning. And so I've had attitude to him before, and I've had to say, that was how I responded was wrong. How you responded, I wasn't proud of, but I'm the adult and I shouldn't have spoken to you like that. And I think that builds trust. Yeah. Is that it's like, I don't know where in their brains, but they begin to trust me because
and that takes humility too.
Yes. And the reason people don't admit they're wrong is because like not being able to deal with that is rooted in pride, right?
Absolutely.
And pride doesn't do well for any relationship.
Yeah, no. That will destroy every relationship.
Yeah. And if you think about the things that you've done wrong in your life or people have done wrong to you, and even in sales you see this, is that if a customer is unhappy and the person who is providing the service, they come and they own it and they say, you know what, we really messed up here on this service. How can we make it right? Yeah. Even though they didn't do a good job, that customer trusts them. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And it's the same in any relationship.
That's huge. I never thought about it going back to trust. That's very true. I know, even with my son, if I overreact over something, I'm like, you know what, honey, I'm sorry. I overreacted, you know, mommy's not perfect and I'll do better next time. And so he's really understanding, and he'll do that too. Or if he sees me feeling like I'm like a little high strung and it's not his responsibility, but he'll be like, mommy, let's breathe together. Because I'll teach him that, like, okay, let's breathe, you know, okay, let's move past this moment. We can do better. And I do think that's huge because it makes me think of something I was listening to the other day, and this is a little heavy, but this woman was talking about trauma in her life to this therapist. And she was saying she woke up in the middle of the night. She was on a family vacation and there was someone on top of her. And she was saying that she was talking about this trauma with the therapist. And the therapist is like, well, why didn't you go to your parents? Why didn't you tell someone? She's like, well, I didn't, you know, I thought maybe they were like, it would stress them out or they were too busy for me or this. And he was like, well, obviously there's an issue there where you didn't feel safe enough to go to your parents. There wasn't trust there. And he's like, that's where the trauma began. And he's like, that was traumatic, but the trauma began with the fact that you didn't feel safe to go to your parents. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that was really deep. And you just saying that, it's like, yeah, it really does build trust. If you can put away your pride and admit when you're wrong to your children, they're going to come to you and feel safe to tell you things because they know that, you're not perfect and that they're not perfect. And there's that understanding there, right? So yeah, that's really important.
Yeah.
I'm glad you touched on that. Now, protecting our children's eyes and ears, preserving their innocence. That's huge in this day and age because everything is like corrupted. TV, the radio stations, just it's tough out there. And I know you talked about this a little bit too. And so I wanted to, dive into this a little bit more. And what's your opinion on that? How do we do that?
This is something I'm really passionate about. I have 5 boys, and I know that the world is out to get them in terms of just wanting to pull them away from looking at. Well, I mean, I think about it in 2 ways. There's a lot of like sexual content that children are being exposed to. A lot of sexual content. But there's also a lot of behavioral content that they're exposed to.
Oh my goodness.
So just attitudes in characters, the way that characters respond to things. So there's 2 different things. I mean, both of them are really important. So you cannot completely bubble your child.
No.
Okay. And that's not going to do well for them.
No.
In the same way that, you need to be honest with them when you've messed up. We have just this open stream of communication with our children. I mean, it starts at a certain age, just about modesty and about what they're seeing.
Yeah.
So there's people in our neighborhood, there's girls that dress in what looks like underwear to me. And my oldest boy is 12, right? He's starting to notice that.
Yes.
So, I'll see him recognize, like, do I like that? Like, what am I looking at here? Like, you'll see the curiosity and just like the fixation on his face. And I have to, as a mom, recognize like that's a normal response for him to have towards a woman because we're designed to be attracted to people. And, I'm so sorry. I have something in my throat.
That's okay. Take some water.
Okay. I'm going to have some water.
Water break.
So, yeah. So I will bring those things up. So I will say like, oh, did you, I noticed that like Sue was over today and she was chatting with you with her dog. And, what did you think about what she was wearing? Like, I'll say that to my son. He'll be like, yeah, she wasn't wearing much at all. And I'll be like, yeah, like, how does that make you feel? And he's like, well, I feel like she should probably be wearing clothes.
Okay.
Like, and, we'll just have these conversations.
Yeah,
we pull it out.
Yeah.
I say, yeah. And
so it's not a secret.
It's not a secret. And it's not,
light.
Yeah.
We
bring it into the light. And I explained to him, I'm like, Sue's making choices that might lead her to not feel like she's valued for anything more than just the way she looks, right? Because she's gaining attention for her body.
Right.
She's not necessarily gaining attention for other things. I mean, she may be, but she's making herself vulnerable to that.
Yeah.
And just talking about how, like, I will say to my kids, or to my older son, I'll say, it's normal. I'm just going to let you know that it's normal when you see a beautiful girl like that to think she's attractive or beautiful.
Yeah.
But God wants us to really work hard to protect our eyes from looking at that too much, because there's going to be a woman one day who you're going to marry, and you want her to feel like she's the only woman you've ever looked at.
Absolutely.
And so, we talk about marriage from a young age in our home. We talk about that, one day you're going to be with this person, and it's important to prepare yourself now for that, because, we make mistakes in our life and we bring those mistakes into our marriage.
We do, yeah.
And nobody prepared me for that. Like, I came into my marriage with all kinds of baggage.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't have a parent that ever warned me that that would be an issue.
Absolutely.
And so we just try to keep it open. Like, my boys, when they get to about 12, 13, like, we have that there's a really good book for boys, it's called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures.
Okay.
And it's not faith-based. It's simply about the dangers of pornography.
Oh, yeah.
And just how, there's certain types of pictures that are good for our brains and our dopamine levels. And there's certain kind of pictures that trigger those dopamine levels but are bad for our brains.
Yeah.
And how to recognize those, how to protect yourself. So, those types of resources I think are really helpful. But more than that is just talking to them and letting them know that these things are actually going to try to pull them.
Yeah.
And keeping that conversation open. We don't get weird about, when we had to explain, our son is 12, he knows about the birds and the bees, right?
Yeah.
So we just, when we're talking about those things, we talk about them as if there's someone one day that's for.
Yeah.
And we really try to instill just valuing who that person is one day and focusing on that. Of course, my kids are going to make mistakes. I don't know what those mistakes are.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a huge pull on them. And so I also have to look at them as, if I find out that my children are into pornography one day, I have to also prepare myself early on that I need to be gracious with them, that this is a huge attack, that as much as I try to prevent, they are going to make choices that I may or may not agree with, and to be prepared to love them through that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a huge attack on men in general.
Oh, yeah.
And
so bad.
And that it's really hard for men to understand that. I think that there's a lot more conversation on it.
There is.
Than
honestly,
there ever has been.
Yeah, this generation is treating pornography very differently. I find that they're watching less of it. They're now understanding the repercussions of doing that, because it's like our generation is suffering from it now.
Yeah.
Because they were exposed to it too long. Now they're having issues in that area. Yeah. And it's because of what it's done to the brain. And now there's, therapy that people have to go through and whatnot. And so now this younger generation is seeing, the effects of that, and they don't want that. Right. And it's just so much more explicit now. Even, our parents' generation, it's like they had magazines, they had, stuff that was a lot softer, I guess you could say. Still, not good, but softer. And now it's you can have anything you want at your fingertips. And it is so dangerous for the brain. It is so dangerous for the whole body, honestly. But I think going back to, young children and protecting their eyes and ears, it's what they do when they're older is ultimately going to be their decisions. But it's so important to try and preserve their innocence while they're young, as much as we can and as much as we are in control. And I find for myself, it's, even on YouTube, we do subscribe to YouTube, but we have no commercials, because the commercials are crazy. I've seen YouTube commercials. All of a sudden it's a cell phone commercial, and there's a man and a woman stripping on a pole. Why? You know what I mean? It's crazy. And so, we have no commercials, and then I make a playlist of everything that I'm okay with them watching. And I know that I put that playlist on, it's not veering anywhere else. And it's mostly Bible adventures and Handyman Hal and, really even Franklin and Little Bear, things that I know are safe to watch, or things that are educational. And you have to be so careful, even with music. It's
and you're still in such an incredible stage. You have a lot more control.
Yeah, because they're 1 and 3 is going to be 4, right?
Yeah.
But your kids are older, so you're in a completely different
and the
ballpark.
And the thing that is, hard to navigate is now when my son has friends over, their friends bring their tablets for some reason.
Oh my gosh, that's tough. That's a scary season. I'm not ready for that season. Yeah. The phones. So do your children have phones?
No, they don't.
Okay, that's good.
I am trying to hold off on phones for as long as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
We gave our oldest son Kids Messenger, and you can already see the addiction pattern. We started with just trying to have him, he had it 2 days a week, but he wanted, instead of having it 2 days a week, just to have it once or twice every day, just to check if anyone messaged him. And I could see the pull that it had. And so he was inappropriate with it, in the sense that we had guests over, and I said, the guests are here, it's time to get off your chat. And he didn't pull himself away from it, just sending emojis with his friends. And that's an inappropriate way to use
Yeah.
it. You have people over now, so
Yeah.
he's now lost privileges for a little bit. Like, if you can't learn to use it responsibly, you can't use it.
Yeah.
And that's our sort of way we go about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's tough. Phones are computers and phones, like.
But we can't live by fear either.
I know. Yeah.
Is that our kids are going to experience the world. And so, like with YouTube, our kids are not allowed to have just like free range YouTube.
Yeah.
If they want to watch something, then we would just vet it, right? Like,
Okay.
My one son likes to watch soccer videos, like training videos. I don't know who these people are. I don't know what language they use, right? So I'll just kind of watch a few with him, see if the channel's safe. And then I need to also let go and trust him to make a decision for himself. So you have to like get to a point where I can't be checking every single thing. I need to now see if he has that discernment and to make these decisions if he should or shouldn't watch something himself. So
it gets to that point where you got to let go a little bit. It's tough, but you have to. So how to keep your children from getting involved in the wrong crowd later in life?
Yeah, that was a carousel that a lot of people liked on my Instagram.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good one. So I wanted to, talk more about that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that there are a lot of people that have applied these things and their children still get, like, there's nothing that you can do to ultimately control your children when they grow up.
And if you try and control them, it's going to have the opposite effect, really.
Yeah. And my children aren't grown up. But where I speak from is that I'm a careful observer of families that have done a good job. And I ask every single family that I see who have like adult children, like in our church or in our community, whether they're faith-based or not.
Yeah.
If they have strong relationships with these kids and these kids have, grown up to have families and are living productive life in society and seeming to make, wise decisions, I say to that, they're usually a little elderly now.
Yeah.
Give me your pearl of wisdom. Like, what went well? And so I've probably asked, 50 people. I don't even need to know if I don't even need to meet their children. If they're explaining to me their family dynamic at Christmas and stuff like that. I say, what did you do? Right? What would you say to someone like me who wants their children to, have that? And there is a consistency in what they say. It's honesty, like this, going back to trust, being honest with them, just being real with your children, raising them in a way where they learn to trust you. They're going to want to be in relationship with you when they're older, and they're going to value your opinion. They're going to feel safe. A lot of the time people leave their nest, their safe place with their parents because they feel like they need to seek that trust out elsewhere. And they feel like they need to fit in elsewhere. And so that's what can lead them into a crowd that might not have their best interest at hand. So just being real with your children and having a real relationship with them, letting them have freedom of choice, letting them feel like they are a part of the family, not that you are the conductor of the family. Like, they can make decisions about what we're going to watch for a movie. They're going to make decisions. We're all going to make decisions on family trips together. They are a part of the family, not just that it's your family and they're your kids, right? That they are an integral part, raising them to feel like they have an identity in your family, that they belong and they're wanted, right? So
that's really huge, and I'll just let's point something out. Is I would say, like, some of the most dysfunctional people I have met in my life have come from families the opposite of what you're explaining, is where, their voice, isn't heard. There isn't that sense of community. They're just constantly being controlled. It's just like, I'm the adult, you're the child. And you're so right. They end up going out into the world and they end up finding the wrong people because they're looking for that. Right. And it can be really dangerous for your child when you don't provide that within the home. And even, I was talking to my dad the other day about just marriage as well. And how important it is to look at the family of the person that you're marrying too, because it can tell you so much about that person. So when your child is going out there and making friends, like, looking at the family of those children that they're hanging with, I think is so crucial. Really, really is. I don't think we do that enough, at least as adults, right? Because you're like, well, they're different, but it's like, how are you raised, you know?
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. But there are some people that I know, and I am one of them, who was raised in a very dysfunctional home and turned out okay.
Absolutely.
So it's not always
absolutely, of course,
the defining thing.
but it can be a war for those people,
It
right?
can.
Like it's you have to go through a war and you come out on either side. And so, yeah.
But yeah, so just having real conversations with your kids, making them feel like they are a valued member of the family, and then creating a space where your child wants to be.
Yeah.
So like having their friends over, getting to know their friends, having fun with their friends, making sure that your own kid is having fun at your house, that you're not always criticizing them. They come in like, oh, well, why'd you get mud on your shoes again? Oh, you didn't unpack your lunch. Oh, but like it's always negative. If you have that kind of environment, you'll notice your kid's always in their room. Why are they always in their room? They don't want to be around you. Yeah. That's a red flag that things are not going down the right path. You want your kids to be hanging out in the living room, hanging out in the kitchen with you. Like if your kids want to be around you, they're likely to want to continue to have a relationship with you, not compromise that relationship when they meet people where they know the values are against how they've been raised, right?
I love that. That's really good advice. Now, in regards to homeschooling versus school and how this changes the battle of preserving our children and strengthening our patients, right? Because I know you homeschooled and you did the school thing. You did both. So I'd love to hear your opinion on that of like, you know, it's obviously harder to preserve your children when they're going to school because they're not with you all day versus having them home and being able to kind of control their environment.
Yeah, I tried homeschooling. We did 1 year with our oldest son, and I had 2 others at home at the time. And so I can't speak from a history of homeschooling. But the thing is that it doesn't matter what one you choose. If your children are I think it's really healthy and important, especially from a faith-based perspective, for our children to experience the world. They need to be able to understand what's out there, and you need to have ongoing conversations about how they navigate
and
that.
To see that comparison of like, this is what it's like, you know, at home, and this is what it's like in the world, right? Yeah. They can see that difference. For sure.
And if you're going to homeschool your children, then I think it's really important to homeschool for the right reasons.
Not out of fear.
Not out of fear.
Yeah.
And I'm, you know, a lot of my friends homeschool, and they're just amazing they're just amazing at it. And I look at them and I'm like, wow, you're a super mom, because when I had my son at home, he's the firing one, like we butt heads. It wasn't good for our relationship.
Wow.
I could do it. I would be able to do it long term, but it wasn't a healthy dynamic for him and I.
Yeah.
And so after 1 year, we both evaluated. He really wanted to try a new school. So we switched all our kids to a new school. We were in a Catholic French immersion school before, and that was okay. But they wanted to go to a Christian school. So we tried it. Now we're in a Christian school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. But there's still like, the thing is that there's still the middle finger at recess.
Of course. Just because it's a Christian school doesn't mean every child is perfect now, right? Like,
yeah. So they're going to a Christian school, and that's an interesting experience because when we were at the other school, it was a lot more, the conversations I was having with my kids when they came home, like, how was your day? They would just be able to regurgitate a YouTube video that had been explained to them by a friend.
Oh, wow.
Because so many kids there, I don't know why, but so many kids, like, they just had this access to YouTube. And so everybody would be talking about these videos they watch. And I would wonder, like, is this normal? Is this everybody? Is this all kids? Is this just our school? Like, I had nothing to compare it to. So when we switched to the school that they go to now, I noticed they're never talking about YouTube videos.
Interesting.
They're talking about the play, what they're doing, like the interactions, the sports they're playing. And, you know, all I can chalk it up to is that, you know, the values I hold, there's something in that wants to preserve my children from the world, right?
Yes.
And so having them in the Christian school, I think there's like-minded families there.
Yes, absolutely.
And you can say one thing or another if that's healthy or not, because before we sent our kids to Christian school, we were actually very pro public school. And the reason I was pro public school is because I want my children to learn how to love people of other faiths and other dynamics, and to be in community and relationship with them, right? And so, Catholic school has a dynamic of that, but we also really wanted our kids to speak French, so we found that Catholic French immersion school, and we were going to that. But because there is what my kids aren't taking away loving people of other faiths, they're taking away YouTube content at school. Oh my goodness. So I think in terms of just preserving their young childhood and playing on the playground, this is a really good fit for them.
Yeah. Okay. That's So it really is just not that black and white. It depends on what your children need, on what you need as a mother and a father, and you navigate that season as it goes. Yeah. And then I wanted to talk about the desire to love and to be loved, because that was something else that you talked about that I thought is so important, because, children, they really just want to be loved by us. And I think even as, as parents, sometimes we think like, oh, if we just go to Disney World, they'll feel, special, or if I get them this gift, they're going to feel loved. But it's like, they really don't need those big things. They need us, present. They need us there. They need they need to be able to trust us. And, even as mothers, like, we want to be loved too, but it's not our children's responsibility to love us, even though that's something that we desire from them. But when you do, have something healthy with them, that comes naturally, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it reflects God's image. He loves us unconditionally. And that's the part there, unconditionally, is that, like, I'm a sinner. Like, I sin regularly. And as hard as I try to not sin, I sin. We all do. And we all know we do. Yeah. Like, whether we believe in a creator or not, we know that we're imperfect. Yeah. And that not one of us, we would all agree. I would say that I could confidently say that if I had a room of 10,000 people, that maybe 99% would agree, and like that we are all sinners. Yeah. The 1% that wouldn't agree are delusional.
Pretty much.
We all know we make mistakes, right? And so it just comes down to I know God loves me despite those mistakes, but I don't naturally receive people's mistakes with such grace as God does with me. And I think that we love that unconditional love from God. Like, I love it. It's just so wonderful. But yet when my kid messes up, I might, like, my natural response is like, he shouldn't have done that and he needs to improve on here. But that's not the response God gives us. And so I think that as a mother, when we unconditionally love our children, they have this freedom with us where they feel like they can truly be themselves. And it goes back to that trust, is that when we unconditionally love them, there's trust there. I see a lot of kids. We were in some competitive sports. We went to some competitive sports. My son was on a team, and there was this other dad out there, and he was just screaming at his kid to do the right thing in the game. And then when, other parents were even looking at him like, they're kids, right? And I just thought, like, it broke my heart. I said a prayer for that child, because I was like, I guarantee you that child doesn't feel unconditionally loved. Yeah. Conditionally loved on how well he performs, right? So our children's performance should not, like, our love should not be reflected in their performance. 100%. And so, it's easy to actually make that mistake as a mom. When our kids are doing really well, they're really behaving, it's so much easier to love them. Absolutely. Or to show our love for them. But it's when they're misbehaving, if we can show them love, and that doesn't mean that we just forget their mistakes. And the way that, to show them that love in those scenarios, I think is really powerful. The way that we show them love when they make mistakes is, like, especially with my older son, when he lost his kid's messenger because he was using it inappropriately, like texting when people are there, I say to him, like, I love you too much to let you continue in this pattern. Yes. Like, does it feel good when I'm texting and you're trying to get my attention? And he'll say, it doesn't. I'm like, I'm punishing you because I love you.
Yeah.
It's not because I'm mad at you.
Yeah.
My love for you is so strong that I don't want you to continue in this pattern. And one of the only ways I can get you to realize that is to have that taken away.
Yeah.
And so when we do discipline our children, we have these conversations with them. And I feel like that's the best way to show them love unconditionally. Like, I love you, and so I'm punishing you.
We do the same thing. Well, with my son, my daughter's pretty young. She doesn't understand, but, you know, it's reminding ourselves, like, do not discipline out of anger, first of all, on you know, on us. But when we do discipline, it's always like after we go in the room and we sit down, I'm like, I love you so much. I don't like disciplining you. You know, this is why. And we have a hug and we pray together and then we move on. And he knows, like, my mom loves me. Like, there's a reason for this. I explain it. It's not just like, you're in trouble and I'm not going to explain it. Now I'm going to give you like silent treatment for like the next 3 hours. You know, it has to be done out of love. So I agree with that. Yeah. And then caring for ourselves. I think that's so important too, as mothers and fathers, right? Taking the time to care for ourselves. How do you care for yourself?
Yeah. It's hard to, like, I have 5 kids and my capacity for self-care is so limited. And so I do know, one thing I do know is that, that the Lord sustains me even when I have no time for self-care, is that there's seasons where there's no room for it. The fundamentals that I really think that every mother needs to pay attention to is sleep and eating healthy.
100%.
Because I do better with my mental health when I'm taking care of my body. Like, when I'm really struggling, I binge eat sugar. So carbs, sugar, whatever. And I know that actually doesn't do anything good for me. So when I'm at max capacity, like I am right now, my youngest is 3, my oldest is 12. I feel like I'm just constantly on. I don't have time to, you know, go to get a massage or do those things for myself. So making sure that I'm eating well and I'm resting, because this is a season.
Exactly.
I think a lot of people get caught into this, and there is this. I would say that it's this deception that we deserve this, you know, time to ourselves for self-care. Like, if you're going to have a lot of children, you're going to go through a season where that's just not available. And you have to come to terms with that, because it doesn't mean that it's not nice to have it and I take it when I can get it. But I can't have this attitude of like, I deserve to have this, because then I'm going to go back into that resentment and lack of gratitude.
Exactly.
And that's going to eat away at my relationship with my kids.
So good.
So I have to realize, like, this is a season. And again, all those families that I talk to who have these, like, you know, established adult children who are doing well, one of the things they say is, you won't always be this busy. Like, this is going to come to an end and you will have way more time on your hands.
Pass. I always say it to myself, like, this too shall pass.
And so I know that my season for rest, self-care, and doing what I want is coming. And I already had it too before I had kids. I'm in a season of giving. And I have to be okay with that. And I might not get that time to myself, whether it's, you know, going out with a friend or whatever I would do if I could choose it. Those life-giving activities, I don't get to do them right now. And so taking care of myself and my health is the priority so that I can be present for my kids.
Exactly.
And I'm not saying that some people's mental health really does need that space, like they might be introverts. And I think that in those circumstances, you need to make adjustments if you're actually, it's part of your health. I'm thankful that I don't need it too much.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I will say one thing that I think can be really detrimental for a lot of women and men in parenthood is caffeine. You know, a lot of the time it's like we're not sleeping. And so instead we're just drinking tons of caffeine and it's just destroying our health, honestly. Like, coffee tastes really good. I get it. Most people drink it, you know, but gosh, is it so bad for our cortisol levels? You know, it puts us in fight or flight when we drink it. I drink
2 coffees a day.
I mean, 2 is not that bad. Okay. Like, 1, I'm like, if you're going to have coffee, I'd say 1 a day. You know, I don't drink coffee at all. You know, maybe like a special treat, I might have a little bit, but I'll get jacked up. I used to drink coffee. It tastes really good. I love it, but I don't. But when you are constantly drinking it, every time you drink coffee, your body goes into fight or flight. It's like, what is this? and then you get this burst of energy.
It's a stimulant.
Exactly. And then you release all this cortisol. And so when you're doing that all the time, and then you're also not sleeping and taking care of yourself, you're going to crash. And so it's important to, if you can, replace it with other things. Like for me, I take ashwagandha and lemon balm every day. Ashwagandha is great for your cortisol levels. It's great for brain health. It's great for energy, stress, sleep, all of those things. So, within motherhood and fatherhood, if you're struggling, like ashwagandha is your friend. Lemon balm is a very calming herb. If you're stressed out, like that's going to calm the nervous system. That's going to help you sleep. I'll give it to my kids if they're like really rowdy. I'm like, come on, guys, line up, and I'm giving them lemon balm, like glycerin or tea or tincture. And I find that calms them, even if they're like having issues sleeping. I'll give them lemon balm. If you don't have lemon balm or you don't have ashwagandha, you can use an herb called skullcap.
Can you give ashwagandha to your kids?
No, ashwagandha is for adults. Lemon balm is for the kids.
It was a super power drug. I felt amazing.
You feel good, right?
I felt really good.
It's amazing stuff. You should always take like breaks. So either take it for 3 months and then take a break for 3 months, or 1 week off 1 week, or 1 week and then weekends off. I usually do Monday to Friday and weekends off. It works better that way.
Okay.
But I mean, it wouldn't be a bad thing if you gave it to your kid. It's just they don't eat it, right? Lemon balm works a lot better for children. Oat straw works good. Skullcap works good. All very calming herbs. And then, there's homeopathy and essential oils. Like I find a really good remedy that a lot of people don't know about is pulsatilla. They call it the mommy remedy. So if you have a young child, even an older child, if they just like want mommy, they're not sleeping, they want to be held, they want to be coddled, and they're just like, you can't settle them. That's an amazing remedy to give. Pulsatilla, you can give a 30C, 1 to 3 times a day until they calm down.
All my kids need that.
Yeah, the mommy remedy. I've had to give it to my children. They've all had seasons where they're just, in that mood. It's like they're emotional there's usually a reason behind it too, but it really helps calm them down and relax them. And then there's chamomilla. There's chamomile, and then there's chamomile 30C and within homeopathy. And you can also give that if your child is colicky, if they're teething, if they are restless, if they're in pain, if they're having issues with sleep as well, you can give that in a 30C the exact same way. That works really well. And then even just like diffusing lavender, like I've, put lavender in the diffuser for my children, or just rolled it on the inner, arms or behind the ears, and that helps
really
calm them. Yeah.
I tried it on the soles of my kids' feet.
Yeah, I'll do that too. Put on the soles of their feet. I find that's not the best for sleeping, but like that can boost the immune system too. It's still calming, but for sleeping, you want them to constantly like be smelling it. Okay. So when you put it behind the ears, they're smelling it. When you put it on the wrist, if they're like thumb suckers or whatever, it's close to them. They're gonna smell it a bit more, but. Yeah, and then I even make a custom blend for anxiety and stress and sleep, which is on my website. And like we have access to all these beautiful herbs, and like you said, like sometimes we can't go to a spa, we can't go get a massage, we can't get 10 minutes in a room. But if we're eating, and with eating, like herbs too, like that counts, right? It's nourishing our body with herbs that is going to help keep us strong and healthy for our children. And sleep is like. Yes, sleep is so important. But obviously, if you're a breastfeeding mom and you're getting up every 2 hours, you get what you can. But you still want to have those moments where, someone can take you in if you have that help and you can get a good nap.
I find we're living in this generation where there's always this man-made remedy for our problems in terms of like pills we can take, whether it's for anxiety or this and that. And I'm not saying that pharmaceuticals are bad. Like there's definitely a place for them. Yeah. But there's so much that God has given us in nature and in all of these different...
Yeah, we have everything we need.
Everything. Yeah. And it's crazy how many people, get hooked on something that is not good for their body.
Right.
And there's something great out there that they could have.
Right, because it just suppresses whatever they're going through. It's like, okay, like you can't sleep, and so you're going to take a sleeping pill instead of something natural. And you know what I mean? It's going to cause more harm. And I even on my Instagram, I even have... instructions on how to make a natural sleeping pill, like using lemon balm. You can literally just get some, if you want to get lemon balm at the store and dry it yourself, or go get lemon balm tea and literally just encapsulate it. Put it in 2 capsules and take that before bed. I do it all the time.
Helps, eh?
Oh, it works amazing. It's amazing. Or you can take a medicinal dose. Like, obviously that's, I'm not going to tell you to do that. But if you look online, you'll see medicinal doses for lemon balm or skullcap or oat straw and, to help you sleep. There's so many things that we have access to that we just don't have the education, and we don't know how to use them or where to get them or what to use. But, it's all there if we look for it. So
yeah, it's amazing.
yeah. And then, learning not to rush through motherhood and prioritizing what matters. I really want to end with that because I think that's so important. That's something that I really try and practice with myself is, when I'm in those moments of chaos, I'm like, you know what, one day when you're older, you're going to be wishing you could go back with a house, full of screaming children and it be chaotic, because like, these really are the days. Like it really is amazing. Your children are only going to be little once. You want to enjoy every single moment. You don't want to just be like rushing through trying to get to the next stage.
Yeah. I think that all those older people that I've talked to, they all say, you're going to miss this.
They all say it.
And then I think in my head, I used to think it gets worse. If I'm going to miss this,
right? Oh my God, no.
That's not what they meant.
Yeah, that's not what they meant at all.
What I would always think.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I feel like the stage that you're in when you're in the grind of motherhood, you feel like it's going to be that way forever.
Yeah.
Like you can't envision your children past where they are.
Yeah.
But the truth is that like sometimes I'll look at my 5 boys and then I'll try and think of them as 5 men and be like, whoa.
I know.
Like, I'm going to miss that little face and that
know.
precious skin.
And
like
the
that
hugs and like the kisses and the love.
Yeah.
And,
we take it for granted in the moment because we're like exhausted. We sort of think it's always going to be there, but it goes so fast. Like my youngest turned 3 and we're, our family is complete now. We're not going to have any more children. And I wish I held on to my first one as much as I'm holding on to my last one. I was going through the motion with him and I had no idea that he would grow up so fast and he would be a 12-year-old boy. And now I think I did a post on this once, is that you're not going to remember the mess. You're not going to remember that you didn't get your living room clean, that you didn't put on that load of laundry. Yeah. You're going to forget all of that. You're going to remember those moments with your baby. So I remember so many times I'm snuggling my kids to sleep and then I'm just going through lists, what I have to do.
Right.
I'm not even present with the snuggle. I know. And then I'm rushing out of the room, creeping out so I can do those things. Yeah. It's so backwards. Like, yes, we are supposed to take care of our homes and stuff like that. But I think that, like, if we just shift our mind to, like, my priority is actually enjoying this season, and that means that my house might not be as polished. Yeah. There is one thing that I've really realized is that when your house is not so polished, this is a philosophy that I have, or a theory. It strengthens your relationships with your friends if your house is not so perfect.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
Because they feel like they can just be real.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
If your house is beautiful and perfect and you have
They're
kids,
like, can I sit here? Can I touch this? Right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's this feeling that they need to compete now, and they're not like necessarily, it's all this comparison game. Like, how do they have 5 kids and their house is always so clean? I'm like, I don't want them in my house. Like, if they come over and, you've got some goldfishies on the floor there, and the pillows are on the ground, and there's toys out, it's like they're like, I feel like I can just be myself here, and we can just know each other. Yeah. And so don't worry about all this stuff, because your priority is just being with your kids and enjoying the season you're in, because it will go by.
I love that. And you know what? When your children are young, they really do have an unconditional love for you because they need you. And when they're older, like, they get to choose.
Yeah. And you're going to long for them to call you.
You know what I mean? Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I agree. You don't want to rush through it. I always try and take in every moment, like, stop myself. Okay, you know what? Go sit on the carpet and play with your children for like, even if it's just 15 minutes before dinner. You have all these things to do, but just do it, because you're going to wish that you could go back and like do less, clean less, cook less, honestly, and just spend more time.
Yeah. And it's never too late to start making that effort. Like, I'm really just getting it now. Like, I think that I was that person who was cleaning their house, making sure everything was in order. And it was part of it was for my own mental health.
Yes.
Like just having
A
order
clean
and stuff like
face
that
and, yeah, I get it.
is really good for just me.
Yeah.
And but not at the expense of those memories and those moments.
Yeah.
So I have to be able to like pull myself away from like, why is this good for my mental health? What's it doing for me? Like, it's more so about control for me. Like, I need to let go of control and just be present in the moment.
Yeah.
Because my house it's fine. And
Exactly.
so having this realization just within the last like 2 or 3 years when I had my last child is that I didn't have that mindset with my first child, but I'm making those adjustments now. And I'm just trying to enjoy him as a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
Because even though he's my oldest, he's still only going to be 12 once.
Yeah. And you really, I feel like with each child too, I know for myself, like I only have 2, but it's like the things I cared about with my first, and then you have a second, you don't really care about those same things. You loosen up a bit more. You're like, oh, okay, you know, it's okay that it's a mess. It's okay. Like today, literally, my son peed on the floor, which he never does. And I'm just like, I'll just do that. Like after I'm done getting ready, I'll clean it up. Like, you know what I mean? And then my daughter poops on the chair. I'm like when I had like just one, I'd be like frantic. Oh my gosh, this is disgusting. Like scrubbing everything. And now I'm just like, well, okay, yeah, Elijah peed over there. Oh, there's pool over the chair. Okay, Mitchell, just keep the kids out. Let me scrub this. You know, you really start to ease up on things you thought you wouldn't. And, you know, it's still not fun, but it's
motherhood is lovely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that wraps everything up. Is there anything you want to say before we close?
No, I mean, thank you so much. It's been awesome. I'm going to have to pick your brain about some of these remedies that I could use for sleeping because my kids wake up and stuff like that.
Yeah, I got you.
I know there's so much available, but yeah.
There's so much. Okay, well, don't forget to like and subscribe and share. And thanks so much for joining us around the kitchen tables. And I said tables, table, and we will see you next time. God bless.